Believe it or not, it's almost been since you've seen this that the last time I've gone into the greenhouse. I mean, I've looked in from the outside, but I haven't even really stepped in. And it's time to start getting it ready and start getting ready to plant in it. So this is what we're going to be starting for our greenhouse for our late fall into winter grow in the greenhouse. All right, so here we go. So the greenhouse is obviously here. We've got our shade cloth on it, and we've left it on this year to see what the temperatures were, which is going to dictate when and how we start our plants. And then if you look inside, it is a hot mess. So we had some weeds growing on the outside that actually came in underneath. So we need to clear all that out. And I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna put a vinegar mixture on it, go ahead and get it done, and just let it be for a little bit until it gets ready to plant. Because you can see weeds this side, one weed on this side. So you can kind of see the difference. So I'll get into in another video like the whole thing that happened with the greenhouse this summer, growing in it, and how we liked it and what we think we're gonna do. But for this video, we really need to talk about getting ready to plant for it, because it is a different schedule than it is for the rest of the garden. Because essentially having an unheated greenhouse like this basically raises your zone by one higher. So if I'm in zone 8A, I'm pretty sure it means I'm in zone 9 and not 8B. I don't know. Why don't we be safe and say 8B? How's that? I don't even know if this is maybe a half zone, whatever. So that's what the situation is with this. And so we put the shade cloth on it, and we have a temperature sensor in there. Now we've had a hotter summer. It's been a lot hotter than it was last year. We've had more days in the upper 90s than as far back as I can remember in the near future or in the recent past. And looking at the graph, I can tell you this shade cloth has definitely made a difference. So we've only peaked up into, and I didn't really get deep into it, but I have a warning set up, and it'll show on the graph, it'll peak red. And it definitely peaked red once, but last year when it wasn't as hot, it peaked red like 5 or 6 times. So we definitely have done a little bit better. Now we've got the shade cloth up there, and we also have this little fan. So this is making a difference. Believe it or not, it's pushing the air out. I mean, I step in here and boy, oh boy, is it hot. But you know, so knowing that it's gonna stay warmer longer, then we need to plan accordingly, because not only is it gonna stay warmer, it's gonna be hotter, basically, this time of year. There is no warmer in the late summer here. It's hotter. You know, in the winter, we can call it warmer, but here, and this is just semantics, but so we need to plan differently. And so what we're gonna plant in the greenhouse this year, we're gonna plant spinach, and then I'm gonna get brave. And I'm gonna do some stuff that's a little bit more delicate than I'd like, meaning it doesn't like to get very hot. So hopefully, but because it doesn't get as cold in there, like last year, it didn't even freeze in there once. So it did get below, but there was no frost. The ground never froze or anything, because as soon as the sun comes up, it warms it back up. We're gonna do bok choy, which is very careful around here. And then we're also gonna try and do some Chinese cabbage, Napa cabbage in there. We are toying with the idea of doing carrots, and we're gonna do lettuce in there. So lettuce seems to do really good in there. So we'll do that. And we may do some radishes. To be honest, I haven't had the best of luck with radishes in there. They just sit too low. And so the way the sun hits it, it has to come up. But you know, we're gonna try and keep it down to fewer crops in there, so that we can plant more of those crops, and these crops that we eat the most in there. And then we gotta get into the whole planting schedule. So that's really where we're going now, is we're gonna be planting, and we're doing stuff like the lettuces. I said I was gonna start those in about the middle of September. So I came over here to show you what I'm gonna start them in, and actually I forgot, we are gonna put hopefully 1 or 2 of these mustards in there. They do really good in there. But we're gonna start our lettuces for our garden in this. So there's 172 cells here. I believe that was the number. I'm not going to count now, but there's 172 cells in here. So we're going to start all of the lettuce in here. But when we go to plant them outside, we're going to move them into 6-packs. And so the way I'm thinking is we're going to go ahead and start them out here in the shade, let them grow, let them get comfortable, ease them out into the sun a little bit more. But when we transplant stuff out here, we'll just go ahead and transplant it into those 6-packs because they can continue to grow and get a little bit bigger, and then we should have a sturdier plant when we go into the greenhouse. Because even though it'll be, you know, hopefully by the time we get it, it'll be in like the 80s, like the low 80s, it'll still be pushing upper 90s in there. So we need to continue to wait a little bit longer, but I can, if I step them up in the pot, then I can get them going. So we're gonna start those then. And then we're also gonna start, we're gonna come out around the same time that we do that, and we are going to start to put in our bok choy. And I'll show you where I'm gonna put it in my thought process behind that. So the bok choy is gonna go in along this row. Right here in the front is where the bok choy is gonna go. So we're just gonna line them up pretty deep here, and then they should take off just fine. If it's still too hot, then we're gonna do the exact same thing at the exact same time as the lettuce and put them out there. And then the spinach is gonna go here as well. So right in the front, we're gonna do a whole row of spinach going right down that drip line that you can see. Not really big into starting spinach, like doing starts or anything. But for this, I may have to, because one of the tricks behind this is because it takes so long for it to cool off that the sun is at such a low angle that we can actually struggle to get good amount of sunlight in there. So we do need to definitely get a little bit bigger plant in there that's more established. So we may end up doing our spinach too, and that's gonna be, all of it's gonna be right at the same time. So this has to happen really fast. So what we're gonna do is we'll come in, and then whatever is the most heat tolerant is gonna go in the ground first. So if we do carrots, we'll sow our carrots first. And all this will start in about the middle of September. And then we'll come in and we'll put in our bok choy. We'll direct sow those in there more than likely. There's about an 80% chance we'll direct sow those in there. And then we'll do our cabbages, our Chinese cabbages, we'll do those too. We'll probably direct sow those right in there. And then we'll come through probably around the next week. So around the 3rd week of September, roughly, we'll come in and we'll put our lettuce in. And so that should round that out mostly. And then that will be, hopefully, the bulk of our lettuce for the year should be grown in the greenhouse, because it doesn't get that hard frost, but if it does get cold, it warms up so fast that it can rebound quicker. And that's why that greenhouse is so successful. What I've done in the past in here is I wanted to try the first couple years and see what would grow well in here. So I'd do like a patch here, patch here, patch here, you know, is real patchy in here of how I'd plant. And as we started to figure out more or less like what's grown good in here, then we've decided that we're gonna try and just basically even it out, grow a less amount of varieties, like of different species of crops, and put in more of those in there, the stuff that we would eat the most. And we've definitely figured out, like I know for instance right here, and this area is a really good growing spot. This right here, anything that goes in this area is really good. Anything that grows back here is tough to grow. And then another dead spot, well, I don't want to say a dead spot, but not as good spot is right here. This is not as good of a spot either. So, you know, we know that there's different spots in here that do it, and that's because of the amount of sun that comes in. And this is where the instance where the sunshade really has become an issue. It's necessary for the temperature, but it's definitely a hindrance, because even though it lets a certain amount of light in, it's just not enough. So we've really got to be on the ball with it, and I've got to stay on top of the forecast and remove it when it's time. You know, I can't sit there and be like, oh, I'll get it off tomorrow or the next day. Like when it's time, I need to go ahead and get it off, because every day matters at the time when we're going to plant this, because the sun's just going to be dropping faster and faster and faster. So we definitely want to get all this in the ground and get it going and get that shade cloth off as soon as possible. And that's just the positioning of where the greenhouse is. It's not, you know, even if you have a greenhouse, the same one, and you have a greenhouse, it doesn't mean that you're going to have the same issue, but because of the amount of sun that it gets in that area, it is an issue. So we do know that, and we do need to take that into account. And also simply washing the windows is going to help it too. And we'll definitely scrub it down and clean it up a little bit in the meantime. But starting the middle of September, we will have fully started our seeds for the greenhouse. And so just to tell you guys again, it's going to be the lettuce, the bok choy, if we don't direct sow it, and then the spinach. More than likely, we're going to start spinach seeds too. So, and that's all going to be at the same time. And then we aim to get that stuff in the ground around the end of September. But I'll bring you guys another video and let you know how that goes. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be cleaning it up, revitalizing the soil. It's been getting watered because I put the drip system in there, so it shouldn't be an issue. And I'm really excited. It is, I mean, I like growing in the greenhouse. In the middle of winter, it is a piece of joy to go in there in the winter when it's cold and it'll still be warm in there and you can enjoy it. So I'm excited. We'll see how we go. Hopefully this year will be a good greenhouse year. That's all I gotta say.